Growing up, I was often seen as the self-sufficient daughter, overshadowed by the constant care my younger sister Julissa required due to her asthma. Each morning was a predictable scene. My mother would rush to Julissa's bedside, filled with worry, ensuring she was breathing comfortably, while I prepared myself for school alone. "Julissa, honey, how are you feeling today? Remember your inhaler," she'd fuss. Meanwhile, I'd pack a simple lunch for myself, just a sandwich and an apple. My father's routine wasn't much different. He poured extra hours into work to cover Julissa's medical expenses, and his spare moments at home were dedicated to her. "How's my little fighter doing?" He'd greet her, often barely acknowledging me. As Julissa visited various specialists, I navigated my challenges independently, managing schoolwork and personal issues without guidance. My mother, consumed by her role as Julissa's caretaker, rarely offered help with my academic endeavors. By the time I reached my senior year, I had excelled academically on my own, secretly applying for scholarships as my parents were preoccupied with Julissa's treatments. The day I received a full scholarship, I rushed home, eager to share the news, only to find my excitement overshadowed by the preparation of Julissa's allergen-free meal. "That's nice, dear. Could you set the table? Julissa needs to eat soon," my mom responded distractedly. That moment clarified my secondary place in our family, yet it didn't dampen my spirit. Instead, it spurred me on. I embraced my independence and the opportunities it brought. Leaving for college was a quiet affair. My mom was engrossed with another of Julissa's health crises, and my dad simply wished me a safe drive. College was a revelation. I immersed myself in my studies, formed genuine friendships, and graduated with honors. Soon after, I secured a well-paying job at Reynolds and Company. Throughout college, contact with my parents was minimal and usually centered around Julissa's condition. However, when I started earning, their interest was piqued, particularly when financial help was needed. Despite never being repaid for the money I lent them, I found a certain satisfaction in knowing they now depended on me in some small way. Life took a brighter turn when I met Andrew, whose optimism and humor brought joy into my life. After a year, he proposed in the most unexpectedly delightful way, hiding a ring in a coffee cup in our break room. Our relationship marked a new chapter where I was valued and seen, a stark contrast to my upbringing. When I shared with my parents that we were planning to get married, my mom immediately expressed concern, saying, "Oh, but with Julissa facing some health challenges right now, we might not be able to help out financially." I reassured her quickly, "We don't need any financial assistance. We've got this covered ourselves." And indeed, we did. We organized a beautiful, intimate wedding with only our nearest friends in attendance. Andrew and I funded everything on our own, enjoyed a modest but lovely honeymoon by the sea, and returned eager to start our life together. We both dedicated ourselves to our jobs and were diligent savers. Within 3 years, we had saved enough to make a down payment on a cozy apartment, which we fully paid off 4 years later. One evening, as we relaxed on our balcony admiring the sunset, Andrew suggested, "Maybe it's time we thought about having a baby." Gazing at him, I felt immense gratitude for this incredible man who had brought so much love, support, and true partnership into my life. "Yes," I agreed, smiling, "we should." Our daughter Aura was born the following spring, a healthy and beautiful baby girl. Andrew overflowed with pride, capturing every little moment with his camera. When Aura was just 3 months old, Andrew received a significant promotion at work that required a brief business trip. "Just a 4-day trip to Milwaukee, and then I'll be back with you and Aura," he assured us, giving Aura a kiss on her forehead before we drove him to the train station. Tragically, that was the last time I saw him. The next call I received was not from Andrew, but from the railway company informing me of a terrible accident. The train had derailed, and there were no survivors. The weeks following Andrew's death were a haze. I mechanically cared for Aura, feeling numb and barely alive myself. When the insurance company contacted me regarding Andrew's life insurance, I realized money was not what I needed most. Desperately needing support, I called my mother, my voice breaking as I spoke. "Mom, I can't do this by myself. Could you help with Aura, just for a few months, while I find my footing?" There was a pause before she responded. "Oh, honey, you know I'm not as young as I used to be. With my blood pressure, I just can't manage the demands of caring for a baby." I felt a sting of disappointment, especially considering the years she devoted entirely to Julisa's needs. Now, when I needed her most, she was unavailable. Resigned, I replied, "Yeah, I'll figure something out." And figured out I did. I hired a wonderful nanny named Elizabeth who cared for Aura as if she were her own. The life insurance funds enabled me to afford the best care for my daughter, and gradually, we adapted to our new life. Aura grew into a spirited toddler, each day more reminiscent of Andrew's joyful smile. Then, I received a call about my sister Julisa's engagement. "Your sister is marrying Connor," Mom enthused. "His family owns a major real estate company. Can you believe it?" "That's wonderful," I responded, watching Aura play. The joy, however, was short-lived. My next call was from my stressed father. "Greta, we need to discuss Julisa's wedding. We're considering taking out a loan against the house." The stark contrast in my family's financial support for my sister's wedding compared to their availability for me was painfully clear. When my father mentioned the amount they were considering for Julisa's wedding, I immediately felt a wave of nausea. "Dad, no. That's your house, your safety net for retirement. You can't jeopardize that for just one day." But his voice hardened, adopting that stern tone I remembered from my childhood. "We can't let the Connors think we're unable to give Julisa a proper wedding. We've already signed the papers." I tried to talk them into a more modest celebration, even offering to contribute financially, but my mother was offended. "You don't understand, Greta. This is Julisa's big day. She deserves the wedding of her dreams. We can't have her future in-laws thinking we're ordinary." I reflected on my own wedding, which was small, simple, and utterly perfect. Andrew and I had proudly paid for everything ourselves, eager to start our lives together without the burden of debt. But, as usual, Julisa wanted something more lavish. Julisa's wedding was as extravagant as expected, over the top, and according to my mother, absolutely perfect. Then Julisa and Connor moved to Philadelphia, and soon, my parents' perfect daughter didn't seem so perfect after all. "Can you believe she won't even take our calls?" my mother cried over the phone one evening. "We took out that loan for her wedding, and now she won't help with the payments." I suppressed an "I told you so," and instead offered sympathy. "That must be hard, Mom." Gradually, my parents began to reach out more. It wasn't just when they needed money. They wanted to see Aura, invited us for Sunday dinners, and even remembered my birthday for the first time in years. It felt good, like maybe we could really be a family. I started helping them more, covering some bills, and for their 36th wedding anniversary, I surprised them with a vacation to Florida and a new car for Dad. "You're such a good daughter, Greta," my mom said, actually hugging me. It was the first hug I could remember in years. Then my father became seriously ill, something with his heart that kept him from working for months. One evening, they called me over after Aura's bedtime. "We're going to lose the house," Dad said weakly. Mom, teary-eyed, added, "We don't know what to do, Greta. We're already behind on the loan payments." "Move in with us," Mom suggested suddenly. "We could help with Aura after school, and you could help with the loan payments." "Please, sweetheart. We don't want to lose our home." Considering the request, I thought about my apartment, my independence, and the life I had built for Aura and myself. "I don't know, Mom. It's an hour's commute to work from here." "Please," Dad urged, and seeing the genuine fear in his eyes changed my mind. "We'll make it work." Aura would love having her grandparents around. They were right about that. When I told Aura about the possibility of moving in with Grandma and Grandpa, her face lit up with joy. Within a month, we were moved in. I found reliable tenants for my apartment, a young couple with steady jobs who signed a year-long lease. Aura was thrilled, exploring every nook of the house with the wonder of discovering a magical castle. I took over the loan payments and most household expenses. Overnight, it seemed, my mom transformed into the grandmother she had never been, picking up Aura from school, helping with her homework, and baking her favorite snacks. "Look what Grandma made for you, Aura," she would say, presenting fresh cookies from the oven. Aura's smile would light up the room, and I tried not to dwell on the empty kitchens of my childhood. For a while, everything seemed to work. Dad's health improved, albeit slowly. I adjusted to the long commute, reminding myself it was worth it to see Aura so happy. Each month, as I made the loan payment, I reassured myself that I was helping my parents keep their home, fulfilling a duty that felt both burdensome and profoundly meaningful. Despite the shared joy and closeness at my parents' house, there was a persistent nagging feeling in the back of my mind, a quiet voice always questioning, how long can this last? When will everything change again? Once my dad regained his health and returned to work, I noticed my mom began to make more and more excuses to avoid watching Aura. My back hurts today, Greta. Or, I'm not as young as I used to be. It's so exhausting to keep up with a child her age. Finally, one morning she was straightforward. I think you should hire a nanny. I can't handle this anymore. So, I hired Nancy, a kind-hearted older woman who bonded with Aura instantly. Each morning, as I left for my hour-long commute, I found myself wondering why I was still living in my parents' house when my apartment was sitting empty across town. But whenever I hinted at moving back, my mom would whip up her famous apple pie, the one Aura adored, and say things like, "Oh, but we love having you both here. Don't we live so well together?" Aura, with her face smeared with pie, would nod enthusiastically, and I'd suppress my frustration for yet another month. This went on for 3 years. Then, one evening after Aura had gone to bed, my parents had a serious talk with me. "Honey," my mom started, her eyes brimming with tears, "we still have 3 years left on Julisa's wedding loan." My dad chimed in, "We know it's a lot to ask, but could you stay until it's paid off? We're so close to being free of it." I thought about the draining commute and how my life seemed paused, but then I pictured Aura's joy in living with her grandparents. Okay, I agreed. 1 more year. I called my tenants to extend their lease. But everything changed drastically the day I returned from work to find Julissa in the doorway, noticeably pregnant. As she moved aside, my mom shouted from inside, "Move away from the door, Julissa. You'll catch your death in that draft." Inside, it was as if I had stepped back in time. My mom was fussing over Julissa, like she was the only thing that mattered, fluffing pillows, checking her temperature, and ensuring she was completely comfortable. During dinner that night, Julissa announced she planned to have the baby there so our parents could help with the newborn. My mom's face lit up as if it were Christmas. "Of course, we will. We'll help with everything." I sat stunned, fork in midair, as the painful memories of seeking her help when Aura was an infant and being refused flooded back. "I can't risk my health taking care of a baby, Greta," she had said then. Now, looking at my mother, I saw the reality I had been denying. Nothing had changed. Julissa would always be the priority, and I was expected to just accept it. Over the next week, I watched as history painfully repeated itself. My mom catered to Julissa, bringing her breakfast in bed, managing her appointments, and filling the house with her favorite snacks. The apple pie that had once been a monthly peace offering to keep Aura and me close stopped appearing altogether. The last straw was overhearing my mom and Julissa discussing plans to convert my room and Aura's into a nursery. I couldn't bear it any longer. I walked into the living room where everyone was gathered, ready to finally address the imbalance that had defined so much of our lives. So that was it. They were going to act as if the last few years had never happened. As if Julissa hadn't left them burdened with a massive loan while I had been the one helping to pay it off. Julissa rolled her eyes dismissively. "Oh, here we go. Saint Greta to the rescue." "Julissa, honey, don't get upset. It's not good for the baby," Mom intervened, ever the peacemaker. "No, let's talk about this," I insisted, pressing on. "Let's discuss how you mortgaged your house for her lavish wedding, and then she just vanished. Let's talk about how I've been shouldering that loan while she's been out living her best life." "That's none of your business," Julissa snapped back sharply. "Nobody asked you to pay anything. If you're so unhappy here, why don't you just go back to your precious apartment?" Mom stepped in, practically shoving me toward the door. "Greta, why don't you run to the store? We need a few things." She handed me a shopping list, adding, It'll give everyone a chance to calm down. I felt like I was being sent away like a child, but I left, hoping the fresh air would help me clear my head. 30 minutes later, I returned with groceries, only to find a heart-wrenching scene. Aura was sitting on the front steps, crying amidst our hastily packed bags and boxes. "Mommy," she ran to me, sobbing. Aunt Julissa yelled at me. She said we had to get out, and when I started crying, she pushed all our stuff out here. Something inside me snapped. I stormed into the house, furious. "How dare you?" I shouted. "How dare you treat my daughter like this?" Dad tried to calm me down, but I was beyond consoling. "No, I will not calm down. For years, I've watched you favor Julissa. When Andrew died, and I needed help with Aura, you couldn't be bothered. But Julissa snaps her fingers and you jump. I've paid your bills and your loan helped save your house, and this is how you repay me? By throwing my child out?"
"Now listen here," Mom began.
"No, you listen," I cut her off. "I've spent my entire life being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who's supposed to understand whenever Julissa needs something. I've given you everything, and you've given me nothing but scraps of attention when Julissa wasn't here to demand it all." In a moment of rage, I grabbed the grocery bags and hurled them across the room. Eggs cracked, and vegetables scattered everywhere. Mom gasped, Julissa smirked, and Dad's face turned red with anger. "Get out," he roared. "Get out of our house, and don't you dare come back. You're no daughter of ours." Mom's voice was ice cold. "We never want to see you again." I stood there, breathing hard, looking at these people who were supposed to be my family. Then, I turned and walked out, closing the door on 27 years of trying to be good enough. Standing on the sidewalk that night, surrounded by our hastily packed bags and boxes, I felt utterly lost. Aura's small hand gripped mine tightly as tears rolled down her cheeks. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone, trying to think clearly. Our apartment was rented out for another year, and I couldn't just evict the tenants legally. I needed to give them 4 months' notice. I called a nearby hotel first, then ordered an Uber XL to help with our bags. As Aura fell asleep in the hotel bed that night, I sat in the darkness with my laptop, searching for a temporary solution. The next morning, I found a furnished, month-to-month rental about 20 minutes from my office. It wasn't perfect, but it would be our new beginning. I had just called my tenant, Lisa, while Aura, my daughter, was having breakfast. "Hi, Lisa," I greeted her, feeling awkward about the conversation that was about to unfold. "I'm sorry, but due to some family changes, I have to give you notice to vacate." Lisa, ever understanding, quickly reassured me. "Of course, we'll start looking for a new place right away. Take care, Greta." The following 4 months were an odd period for us. Aura and I moved into a temporary apartment, which felt like a sort of limbo, not quite homeless, but nowhere near the feeling of being at home. During this time, Aura became unusually quiet, internalizing the tumult of our situation. Finally, Lisa informed us that they had secured another apartment, exactly 4 months after our upheaval began. That day, Aura and I returned to our apartment. As I unlocked the door, a profound sense of relief washed over me. This was our sanctuary, a place free from drama, favoritism, and the constant tension that had plagued us. "We're home," I announced. Aura scampered around, joyously rediscovering her toys and books we'd left behind. Later that night, once Aura was asleep, I took a moment to reevaluate our finances. Without the financial burden of supporting my parents, we were more than just stable. We were thriving. I set up a new savings account for Aura's college fund and arranged for automatic monthly deposits. Life gradually returned to normal. Aura rejoined her old school, where her friends welcomed her back warmly. I dove back into my career, earning a promotion that had previously eluded me due to the distractions at my parents' home. Over the next 7 months, Aura and I settled into a comfortable routine filled with school activities, work, movie nights, and weekend adventures. Just the two of us, no drama, no guilt, no complex family dynamics. Then, one unexpected Sunday morning, a knock at our door jolted me. Peering through the peephole, my heart sank. My parents stood there, holding a baby. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "Greta, please," my mom began, her tears flowing immediately. "We need your help." My dad appeared aged and worn. "Julisa's gone," he explained. They recounted the whole story right there in the doorway, without an invitation inside. Julisa, my sister, had left after her marriage fell apart, leaving her baby with our parents, who were now overwhelmed. "We can't do this alone, Greta. We need you to move back in, help with the mortgage, help with the baby," my mom pleaded, her expression tired yet manipulative. Looking at them, seeing my mom's calculated tears and my dad's desperation, something clicked inside me. The baby looked up, innocent and unknowing of the family turmoil. "No," I said quietly yet firmly. My mom's tears stopped instantly. I said no. "I won't help you, not this time." "How can you be so heartless?" My mom's voice rose, her anguish echoing down the hallway. "Your own family will be out on the street. They'll take our house all because you're too selfish to help." As neighbors began to peek out from their doors, curious about the commotion, I stood my ground. "You want to do this here?" I challenged.
Fine.
"Let's talk about how you refused to help me when Andrew died." Standing there, with the past and present colliding, I knew this was a defining moment for me, choosing my and Aura's well-being over returning to a cycle of manipulation and despair. For months after returning home with my young daughter, my parents showed up unexpectedly at my door, with a baby in their arms. My heart sank as I opened the door to their pleading faces. "Greta, please," my mother started, her eyes welling up with tears. "We need your help." They proceeded to explain how my sister Julisa had abandoned not only her marriage, but also her newborn child with them. They were overwhelmed and desperate for assistance. "This isn't about me being heartless," I countered as they stood in my doorway. "This is about you facing the consequences of your own actions." My father's anger flared. "How dare you?" he exclaimed. "How dare I?" "No. How dare you foster a situation where Julisa felt she could do anything without facing any consequences? You financed her lavish wedding, and now she's left you with the debt just as she's left her child. You want me to clean up your mess yet again? It's not happening." "You're our daughter," my mother cried. "No," I replied firmly. "I was your daughter. You made it very clear whose side you were on the night you threw my daughter and me out. Now, please leave. Forget my address, forget my phone number, forget I exist, just like you did for most of my life." As I closed the door on their protests, my mother's cries continued, but they no longer reached me. Inside, Aura looked up at me, her small face filled with concern. "Mommy, are you okay?" I walked over and hugged her tightly. "Yes, baby, I'm better than okay. I'm free." That moment marked the last time I saw my parents. I don't know what happened to them, to Julisa or the baby. Occasionally, Aura asks about them, and I'm honest with her. I tell her that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family. Nowadays, our life is peaceful and fulfilling. Aura excels in school, I love my job, and we're cultivating the life I always envisioned, one rooted in genuine love, not obligation or manipulation. Sometimes, late at night, I look at old family photos and feel a pang of sadness for what might have been. But then I saw Aura, growing up strong and secure, loved unconditionally, and I know without a doubt that I made the right decision.